Hello, backers! This is Ryan from Card Games for a Buck, and what we're looking at is a gameplay for Dice War. So this is one of the games that was available for backers, especially if you paid the $2 or more, which basically everyone did. And this game requires a few components. One, you have to print this thing out, but two, it also requires 10 six-sided dice. Thank you. And 2 D20s, which if you're like D&D fans out there, that's really easy for you, so good job. If you don't have those components, I'd suggest going on Amazon and purchasing a pound of dice, which is actually pretty cheap for getting a stinking amount of dice, and it's really good for other games that you're playing in the future. But you do need the dice. You can't play without it, so get in if you want to play. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over a gameplay of Dice War. And we're going to go over about 2 rounds and just kind of show you generally how the rules work, but we will be playing an actual game. We don't quite know where the outcome's going to be. If you have any questions about the rules of this game, or you want to look up the actual rules themselves, you can find it on the website as well as an online forum where you can ask your questions. Also, feel free to post in the comment below, and I'll look at the comments later and respond to them if they need to be responded. So let's get right into it. Dice War is a game where we are contesting against each other, basically trying to slowly eliminate the other player. And the way we do this is we start out with our D20, which is called our keep. And we're going to set the number to 20 and go ahead and put it on the D20 indicator. When our keep score drops down to 0, we lose. The way the keep score drops down to 20 is we'll be attacking each other's pawns, which are the six-sided dice, and we will also be trying to move our pawns into the enemy zone. And if this was color printed, you'd be able to see it, but this zone is blue zone and this zone is the red zone. And if I'm able to move my die into her zone, she would also lose points. And the way we do this is each die has a rolled number on it, which indicates its attack strength and its move. And one thing to keep in mind as well is when you're using the dice for this, you want to be able to tell the difference between the 2 different sets of six-sided dice. Whether that means that this one has red and purple and this one has blue and yellow, doesn't matter as long as they just have different colors amongst them. So let's jump right into the rules then. We begin by starting with the position phase. And the position phase starts with red going first. And my wife's just going to go ahead and roll one of her die. It's a 5. She has the opportunity to put that 5 in one of her 2 zone spots, either here or there. The 5 is going to move 5 squares forward, or it could also remain there, just like any other die. It can't move 4, it can't move 3 or 2, it has to move 5 if it's going to move, and we'll get there. But it also has an attack strength of 5, which is backwards in this game. The higher the attack strength, the less it's going to actually be able to do against another die. For example, if a 2 and a 5 were attacking each other, the 2 would win the 5. Alright, so it's my turn to roll. I rolled a 3. Generally, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to put ourselves in good position against the incoming die. So for example, this 5, I know it's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I know that my 3 can beat it, so I'm going to make sure that they land on the same spot. And that's generally a good strategy. So one thing that to keep in mind, just to have it, you have 2 different sides of the board, and you want to be on the side where these arrows are for your zone, and the other player wants to be on the other side. What this is basically saying is that when a die is on here, it has advantage, and I'll talk about advantage during the attacking phase. But in your zone, you are the one with advantage, so you're on the arrows. While if the enemy moves into your zone, they don't have advantage. Alright, so she's going to go ahead and roll her die, and we'll just continue forward. See, notice how we rolled the dice one at a time. Alright, so I rolled a 5. Now, when placing the dice, one thing to keep in mind is you can only have 2 dice in an area, 2 of your same dice in an area at one given time that are moving. So I have 2 5s here, she has 2 5s there. They could both move up to there. However, if I rolled a third 5, it would not be a valid move for me to place it there, as I cannot have all 3 move. The one thing I can do is I can still place it there, because one die does not have to move. Instead, it can stay in the defensive zone. And you can actually have 3 die on the board as long as one is in the defensive zone. You can have 3 die in one zone as long as one of them is in the defensive position of that zone. So that is valid, but I didn't roll that, so she's going to go ahead and roll. I just killed my life. And alright. Notice that this is only actually true in the final move. I have 4 dice here, and that's fine because I'm just going to guarantee that when they all move, I'm not going to have all 4 stay here. I can only have 1 stay there in the defensive zone. All of them are going to move, and in the end, they're all going to be in different spots, and that's just something you have to keep in mind. Alright, so we've just finished the position phase because we've ran out of dice to roll, and we're going to move on to the move phase, which starts with my wife again, being red, and she's going to choose one of her die to move forward. And the way we're going to keep track of which die have been moved already is we're just going to go ahead and take our die and move them off the board. This isn't required. But it's a good way to keep track of what's been moved and what hasn't. And just keep them in their same zone areas just off the board. Now she knows that she hasn't moved any die yet, and she can go ahead and move any die she wants. Alright, and notice she had to move that 3 spaces forward. She moved it in the advantage zone. I'm going to go ahead and move my die there as well. And we just go through this one at a time until all of our dice have been moved. You can even move them in a defensive position. That counts as a valid move. Notice now that I'm forced to move this 5 since 2 of them cannot stay in the defensive position. Alright, and once we have moved all of our dice, or decided or have decided to not move a die by putting it in a defensive position, we move into the attack phase, which doesn't require any input on our part, we just have to resolve the board. And the way we do this is we look at zones that have advantage. And again, these are the zones with the arrows on them, which you can see is our individual zones as well as the middle of the board. And the way it works is we look at a die on the advantage zone, such as this 5, and we look to its immediate left and right, or left and right, and we see if there is an opposing die in either one of those positions that is of a higher number than it. In this case, there is none there, so we can move on. In this case, there is a 5, which is higher than my 3, and this die can remove it. There is no die higher than her 3. There's one equal to it, but not higher, and so that doesn't count. In this situation, though, her 3 is higher than my 5, and that one counts. So that's first how you take care of the advantage positions. Next, we look at the individual zones, and we see if there's opposing dice within those zones, and then we remove those dice accordingly. Alright, so first of all, we can see this zone. We look and see which die is higher, and if the higher die is going to be the one that's removed. Alright, then we go into the next zone, same thing. The next zone, they are both the same number, which means they are both removed. And that's it. Notice that there also can be another situation where, say for example, you have 2 dice of your own against one opposing dice, or even this situation. But let's look at this one real quick. What would happen is first, the 2 dice, you're going to do the exact same thing. The 3 is going to be the highest number of those 2 dice, so the 5 is going to be removed. And then, because there was 2 dice in here, this dice is automatically eliminated. Even if this was a 4, this dice would still be eliminated because there was 2 dice there. And then this dice would remain. If there was all the dice here, we remove the highest dice from the board. Then we remove the next highest dice of the opposing dice. And then again, we would look at these situations and remove the higher of the dice. So that's how you would resolve the different types of attack phase. At this point, we look and see how many dice we had removed from the board. I had 2 removed, as long as I didn't accidentally switch things up in this process, which I might have. I'm a cheater like that. And she had 4 removed, and so she dropped her counter down by 4, and I dropped mine down by 2. And like I said, once we get down to 0 life, we lose. So what we can do at this point is we can remove any die that we want from the board without penalty to our keep score. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this 5. And it's my turn to roll first, so I'm just going to go ahead and roll. And I have to place these dice within my zone again. Alright. I really want to stay in that advantage zone, which is why I rolled that one to stay there. Alright, and I've run out of dice, so my wife's just going to go ahead and roll all of her dice one at a time and place them one at a time. Alright, and we're just going to go ahead and now move on to the move phase. It's my turn to go first, and she went first last time. And I'm just going to go ahead and move. So again, we move these off the board just so we know what we haven't moved already. And I'm going to move this 1. Alright. I'll move this 3. Alright, and again, we resolve it. First we look at the advantage spot. My 4 or my 3 could take out this 5, so it's going to. This 2 can take out this 3. And then we look at zones that are conflicting, which there is none in this situation. And so we finish the resolving of the attack phase, and we can tally the score. Again, I lost 1, she lost 1. The other thing that's important is she got one of her die within my zone. This will automatically remove it from the board, but it won't count against her as a score. What it will do, however, is count 5 score against me. And so I'm actually going to have to remove mine down 6. And so that's quite a penalty for me, as now I'm significantly losing against her, even though I was defeating most of her dice. And that's the basics of Dice War. So, I mean, you continue moving forward until you finish, but for the sake of keeping this as short as possible, that's what you guys get. Best to play against someone who's willing to have a little bit more math-heavy of a game. It just takes a little bit for your mind to get wrapped around the different moves and trying to think about the attack kind of backwards, since lower number is better. But once you play a few games of this, the gameplay goes by rather quickly, and you can start developing some strategies for it. So I hope you guys had fun watching it, and let me know when you guys play the game yourself and how you like it, and perhaps post your own gameplay videos for it. But thanks for watching.